Welcome to the Moon Unscathed. I'm Dwan L. Hearn, more affectionately known as the Moon, and I really wish I had a theme song. It'd be really great because I feel like these interviews just kind of start, and I just never. This is what happens. They just start. I need a theme song. I totally need a theme song. Either way, in other previous interviews, if you followed this channel at all, you know that there was a convention I went to that I go to every year, and that's Imaginarium. And while I was at Imaginarium, I had the absolute pleasure of talking to this lovely young lady, and we got to talking. The conversation was probably like a good solid half hour or so ish. We were just kind of standing there after the awards ceremony, and I was just like, you are so fascinating, I need you on this show. So ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you USA Today bestselling author K.L. Bone. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Tell the lovely people a little bit about you.
I'm Kristen. I write dark fantasy and paranormal romance under the name K.L. Bone. I currently live in Chicago, but I'm a bit of a world traveler. I've lived in England. I've lived in Ireland, doing Gothic Studies at the postdoctorate level for a couple of years. I'm a huge fan of Gothic literature, vampires, horror, fantasy, sci-fi, anything speculative fiction, really. And I've written about 30 books. My 31st is about to come out at the end of the year. So
30 just is mind-boggling. I am super hyped about the one book I released by accident. 30 is mind-blowing, but don't worry, we're going to get into literally all of that because I'm sure some of you are like, wait a minute, Gothic Studies? And let me tell you this now, if you happen to find her on social media, kind of travel, it's not even close. Kind of travel. No, we're going to touch on all of that in the course. Like y'all know, I got some notes. Question number one, before we get into the interview, what made you approach me? Because I was just I was so thrown off, I wasn't ready. And I was just like, well, hello.
Well, I was sitting with Dacre Stoker at the Imaginarium for most of the day, and I'd seen you come by the table a few times. And I watched your short film, which I really enjoyed.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to pause and tell you how much I'd enjoyed it.
Well, I appreciate that. That means a lot. And that, if you're curious, this is not about me, but it was Malice Manor Cribs. It's super, super funny. It's available on YouTube. You can watch it. Not this channel. You have to search for it. It's fine. But no, I really do appreciate you and Dacre and Jamie being in the room to watch as we premiered that. That was a big deal for us, and it means a lot to me that you did enjoy it. The funny thing about that one is there's no script to that. They were just acting. They were just all
improv.
Just improv. Thank you, because I was so struggling to find that word. And there was a bunch of young people, the young people who work at the Haunt, and they did such a great job. And I was really, really proud of them. But speaking of young folks, we're going to get into this interview. You, as a young person, how did this all start? What was it that really got you into writing? What made you think that writing was it?
I started writing in high school. I was a freshman, and there was a classroom little competition, and I wrote a short story, which was a 10-page sci-fi piece. My professor said it was really good and encouraged me to put it into this local, a slightly bigger competition.
Nice.
So I did, and I won the competition.
Congratulations. See, look, awards already.
I was shocked when I won, and it was my first little $10 paycheck as an author for winning the competition.
Hey, do you still have a stub from that?
I'm pretty sure my mother does somewhere.
They always do. They always keep those kind of things. I think that would be the coolest thing to have, the stub from that. Your first writing paycheck?
Oh, I'm pretty sure my mother does somewhere. But I won this little competition. And then years later, when I started college and I was a freshman in university, I had this amazing teacher. And I didn't realize how amazing they were until later on, like reflecting back. It was a creative writing course, and there were 4 assignments. One had to be poetry, one had to be prose. The other 2 could be whatever you wanted.
Right.
There were no rules, no page limits, no genre, like you can or can't write this, nothing. Just go write what you want to write. And then, there were classes teaching you how to do it, how to write better and strategies for writing and that kind of thing. But I plopped an 80-page story on his desk, and he read every single word.
80 pages. And this was what, like early part of college?
In college, yeah.
Oh, you were destined for novels at that point.
And not only did he read every word and graded it and provided feedback, but that would later on, many years later, become my first published novel.
Oh, I'm gonna get. Matter of fact, I'm not even gonna wait till later. What was the name of that novel?
Black Rose.
So this. Yeah. This is what that competition was. This is what got graded, and you got the feedback, and it became this.
Yes.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. I can only imagine just being that professor, just having this 80-page tome dropped on my desk. You're like, you said anything, right? Like, yeah, no page limit. Correct. But you got 20 pages for me? And you're just like, plop. It's like, check it out. Do you remember that professor's name?
Unfortunately, I don't.
Well, whoever you are, professor, congratulations. You are part of the journey that led to this. This right here. And there's a 1 on that. That's a series, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get into that in a bit. So that's such a great story. I love that all by itself. So with a teacher that led you into the competition, and then this professor who probably directly changed your life, what would you say would be the importance of having those kinds of mentors and people who are kind of outside your space and encouraging you? Like how vital is that for a creative?
I think it's very vital, in my personal opinion. I'm sure you can do it without that kind of support, but having it helped so much and made the road so much easier, just to have people who encouraged me and supported me. I got very fortunate when I was a sophomore in college. I took a class with a guest lecturer named Lilith St. Croix, who is a New York Times bestselling author of fantasy, dark fantasy, and she offered to read the very first page of everyone's work.
Right.
Only the first page, but she would provide feedback on it. And when I received my page back, she had a note on it that said, "When you finish this novel, I want to read it."
Now that's dope.
And Miss St. Croix really was instrumental in helping me learn some of the foundations of writing. She looked at that first novel and kind of went, for about 30,000 words, I think what she said is you're clearing your throat. You're learning how to write. The story starts 30,000 words later.
Gotcha.
And so we threw away 30,000 words. Started from the point where she said it should start. And of course she was right. It was a much, much stronger story. But she coached me kind of through my first novel. And I was very fortunate. And without, she was one of the reasons I have a writing career.
So I want to touch on that, if you don't mind, because one of the things I love with one of my other shows is we love to teach and provide information for those who may be trying to do this themselves. So when you say that the story got stronger, what was it in those first 30,000 words that equated to just clearing your throat? Like when you say that, what do you mean?
I think sometimes you can be on the wrong track with a story, or you're afraid. With me, because I write dark fantasy. I was kind of trying to write dark fantasy, but I was hesitating to go dark.
Okay.
So having someone come in and say, you shouldn't be afraid. Sorry, you shouldn't be afraid to tackle these themes. If you're going to tackle them, tackle them.
So we're going to go all the way.
Yeah. If you're going to create a fantasy world, throw yourself into it. Create a fantasy world. If you're going to write horror, go to the horror. Don't, whatever the genre is. I was kind of told not to be timid about it. Just write this, you write the story you want to read.
Right, yeah. So do you think that that's something really common with writers at the beginning of their careers, or at the point where they're starting to explore, should I do that? Do you feel like that's like a stumbling block that most new writers stumble over, not going hard enough in a sense?
I think writing is like any other learning process. The more you practice, the better you get, the stronger you become, the more you learn. I'm sure some authors are out there who got lucky with their very first thing they ever wrote, and that's amazing if they did.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the authors I know all have a novel or two hidden in a drawer that, no, it's never going to see the light of day, or needs drastic revisions to be as good as what they produce later.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I have my very first screenplay. Yeah, no one really seen that. Like 3 people may have seen that one. I'm like, you know what? I can revisit that, because again, now that you mention it, I do feel like the first several pages of that screenplay is just me thinking what I need to write. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to add this and lead into it. I'm like, you know what? I could really just do a very short piece starting at like this part all the way in the back, like 8 scenes in. I could just start there. I mean, is that kind of how you, when you went back and looked this over, is that kind of what you noticed? Like, I didn't need all this right here. This was just kind of filler. Is that the kind of the idea of it?
Yeah, I had some filler. I had some scenes from when the character was younger that didn't really add to the story, to the heart of the story. It was a fun backstory, but it wasn't the main story.
Gotcha. So when you went into college, was writing the plan?
Yes. I was pre-law and English. I was going to major in creative writing, but unfortunately the university that I went to, after I declared creative writing, they said that you can't do speculative fiction. No horror, no sci-fi, no fantasy, nothing that I love to write.
What was that? Why?
Not scholarly enough, perhaps. I'm not sure, but that was the school's policy, apparently. And so I had a discussion with my supervisor over it, and ended up switching to literature for my undergraduate degree, because literature would let me study a broader scope than the creative writing department. The funniest part of the story with the creative writing department was that the textbook that they used for their class was On Writing by Stephen King.
A classic for nearly any writing. The amount of suggestions I've heard: read on writing, read on writing, read on
Yes.
writing. So you guys read? Would you put your name in that hat as far as people suggesting you to read? New writers to read on writing.
Absolutely, yes.
There you go. You heard it right here from a USA Today bestselling author. I would take that to the bank, along with that $10 reward check. Take it all to the bank. So pre-law, how far did you get into pre-law?
I spent 1 year in law school in California, and I was doing a dual program to get my master's in English and my JD at the same time.
Right.
I was supposed to go to my English program also in San Diego, and then I heard about this program in England that was focusing on Gothic literature and vampires. And almost as a joke, I said, wouldn't that be cool? And I had a teacher who said, yeah, that would be really cool. Why don't you go?
That sounds so cool, which is what really jumpstarted our conversation at Imaginarium. I'm like, pause. You could go to school for that? So you leave California.
Yes.
And well, if I remember the story correctly, they're like, go ahead and apply. So you did, and you got in.
Yes, I got
What was
in.
that feeling like? Like when you're like, okay, this is actually real now.
It was surreal. It was exciting. It was scary. It was, am I really going to pick up my whole life and leave law school to go study vampires in English? And 3 months later, that's where my husband and I were.
So you were already married. What was that conversation like? Like, I can only imagine being like, hey, honey, so here's the thing.
Thankfully, I have a very loving and understanding husband. And he decided, we basically had a big conversation about it. And he decided to apply for an MBA program at the same university in England.
Makes sense.
So he went to get his MBA. I went to get my master's in literature.
So shout out to Cameron. Super dope. He was part of the conversation we had too. Also real cool dude. Love talking to him as well. So now where exactly did you go to study? Like where were you?
I started at the University of Hertfordshire, which is where I got my master's degree.
Gotcha. And then anywhere else?
I also went to study at Trinity College, Dublin.
Mm-hmm.
I did some postgraduate study there, and then I was working on my PhD at Queen's University, Belfast.
That's wild. So you're just like, so now you're in the UK. You left from California, the United States, and you've moved abroad. What was that culture shift like? Like adapting to the way that things are being done there? How'd that shift feel?
It felt really amazing. My school was perhaps a little more laid back than law school was, just in the general culture.
Yeah.
But it was obviously a completely different shift in fields from law to English.
Oh yeah.
A big difference for me. But I loved England. I fell in love with England. I'd been fortunate to go twice before. Once for study abroad in college, and once as I was 14 and my grandmother took me over there.
Nice.
So it was my third time in England, and I knew I'd loved it from my previous trips, and I was just so excited to get to go. And the land of Shakespeare and Henry VIII and King Arthur and all the myths.
Was any of that really incorporated in just kind of like how you survey the town, like where you traveled to, like when you're like not in class, obviously, like you're not like going day to day to class and then like hopping a plane back to Chicago or to California. You're living there. So did that like, hey, I want to see where the globe was. I want to go here. I want to go there. Is that how you spend your free time there?
Yes, I saw quite a few plays at the Globe. We went to see where Shakespeare was buried. We went to see Oxford and Cambridge just to walk around and see them, these amazing locations. We traveled quite a bit in England. And then I've also done quite a bit of traveling through Scotland and Ireland.
So as a writer, when you study anything, literature and like the good stuff from the past, Shakespeare's name is synonymous with writing. What did it feel like to sit in the Globe?
I mean, magical.
I'm gonna say, like, did it feel like holy ground?
Well, it's not the historical location. That's actually down the street.
Right, but
it is a full reincarnation of it. So yeah, it felt magical. It felt like I was walking through time.
That's amazing. And has any of that really, did that like re-energize, like this is clearly the path I'm supposed to be on?
It did, yes, absolutely. Just getting to front, I'm a castle person, so seeing the castles, the Tower of London, some of the Scottish ones, Dunatar in Scotland is probably my favorite castle that I've ever been to. It's this gorgeous, gorgeous castle surrounded by water on at least 2 sides, I think 3 sides, up on this kind of hill on the coast of Scotland. And it has such rich history. It protected the crown jewels of Scotland for a while. Kings and queens have been there.
And you can feel all that history while you're there.
Absolutely.
So everyone, you need to get your passports out. Go ahead and get that UK visa. And then just get on a plane and just go.
Yes.
Just go. How did all that magic, I guess to say, how did that affect your writing? And what do you hold on to that as you write your 14 million books?
Not that many yet, but
we're halfway there.
It definitely influences my work. My Tales of the Black Rose Guard series is based on the Arthurian myth of Tristan and Isolde, blended with Irish Fae mythology.
Okay, you gotta give me a little bit more detail on that.
Tristan and Isolde, it's a Arthurian tragic love story.
Mm-hmm.
Tristan and Isolde fell in love, but Isolde, an Irish princess, was supposed to marry Tristan's uncle.
Okay.
And ended up having to marry his uncle, but she was completely in love with Tristan, and Tristan was completely in love with her, but they couldn't be together because she had to marry the king, King Mark of Cornwall. And but their love goes on, and eventually when they both pass, they're buried near each other but separately. And a vine and a rose grow up on the graves, and they basically combine the graves of the lovers. And the king orders the vine and the rose cut down, but every morning the vine and the rose reappear.
It's just undeniable love.
Undeniable love.
That's beautiful.
And so I took the title and a little bit of the actual love story from Tristan and Isolde, and I blended it with Irish Fae mythology because my characters are Irish Fae in the novels.
Yeah. Now that is not so much fairy, but like fairy adjacent. I'm not so scholarly on fae and fairies and gnomes and such. So you gotta help me with what exactly are fae.
They were kind of the Irish gods and goddesses.
See, I'm way off.
Yeah, there's a wide collection, I guess, of fae. Fae is a big term that can cover everything from fairies as we kind of imagine them to
so not so
big, tall, beautiful gods and goddesses of fairy, to changelings, who are kind of some of the darker side of fairy, to some other creatures. It's kind of an encompassing term that kind of.
So it's more of like a magical category than a species-esque category.
Yeah.
Like trolls are trolls, but faes are like a thing, like a singular thing.
Yeah, and they're kind of fae are they're not typically considered like Tinkerbell fairies. They were beautiful creatures, seductive creatures, sometimes dangerous creatures. They would lead men off cliffs or
sounds like my love life, definitely.
But my doctoral studies is looking at changelings, which are a type of Irish fae.
Okay.
And they're stories from Ireland that fairies would come steal babies out of cribs and leave a changeling child in their place. So they would switch babies for changelings.
And then changelings are just gonna like look like us, play as us.
They look like us, but their behavior tends to be off. They laugh when they should cry. They cry when they should laugh. They're socially awkward. And some stories even go so far as to say they have disabilities, or they have chronic illnesses like epilepsy. And parents would have to do things to try and get the fairies to come take the changeling away and bring their real child back, which often included mistreating the children.
See, that's wild. It's just why I love doing this show. I love talking to people who do things in spaces where I don't typically hang out, because that's fascinating. Yeah, Tinkerbell, and then the fairies from like Once Upon a Time. Like those are. Do you remember that show? I love that show.
Yes, I do.
So yeah, those are my only real experiences with fairies and fae, I suppose. But that's interesting. I love that. And so this is all the kind of things that you guys that was discussed and studied in the encompassing Gothic studies.
Yes, my doctoral studies are on the fae. My master's program was vampires. There's a whole course on vampires that I took. And then I had a program that dealt with some Jack the Ripper stories, a course on sex, class, and violence in literature. So kind of encompassing its modern literary cultures is technically what my degree's in.
Okay, so that is, and I guess I'm trying to explain it or understand it in a more, I don't know what I'm talking about kind of way. So we were talking about sci-fi, horror, and fantasy as the categories that kind of fall into that speculative fiction range. And you mentioned earlier how when you were writing, when you started to write this, you were, and some of the other writings, you weren't going dark enough. So would it be fair to say that when you're studying this, it's teaching you about the things that you will be encompassing into your work to better understand the worlds that you're creating?
A lot of it, yes. I have fae in my Tales of the Black Rose Guard book. I have a fairy tale retelling of the Children of Lear, which is an Irish fae story. I fell in love with the story the first time I heard it, so I wrote my own version.
Okay.
More adult, more romance in it than the original.
Gotcha.
But I fell in love with that myth, so I wrote my own version. I have a vampire series with 5. I've got 5 in the series plus a Dracula book out. So I have 6 vampire books currently out, with a 7th coming.
Right. And we're going to definitely we're going to close with make sure everyone has heard all the cool things about you, because this is so fascinating enough already. But we're going to make sure we get to all the releases later. So like I'm trying to best understand this, because like for me, my first initial thought was, I'm sorry, I'm going to go study vampires across the ocean, which by itself is dope. And so when you're in a class where you're studying vampires, what exactly, being that they are fictional characters, what are we studying? What are you learning?
You're looking at the same thing you would look at in Shakespeare or in classical literature. You're looking at the themes of the novels. You're looking at the history that was going on during the time period. If you look at Dracula, for just have a small example here, when you look at Dracula, you're looking at reverse colonization and the fear that England had of foreigners coming into England during the time period.
That checks out.
So you are looking at the same themes of a traditional literature class. You're just looking at it through the lens of these specific Gothic texts. My professor, Sam George, she actually helped create the program based on the question of, I want to get more students invested in literature at the postgraduate level. And she asked students, what do you like to read? And she started building a program around their answers.
That's amazing. And I think that gives a little bit of hope to, actually a lot of hope to the future of like post-secondary education. Because I always feel like colleges is kind of the direction we always send people to go. I've got 4 kids, and so like that's the direction we expect them to go. But you want to make sure that they're actually going to learn something that they're going to enjoy and actually be interested in. Otherwise, it's a waste of money. So I think that was a fantastic move on that professor. So kudos to them. And so in this program, we're exploring, again, the same thing that you would explore in King Lear, the history of that time frame. What are these characters doing? Why would they be doing this kind of thing? What's the difference then and there? But we're looking at what kind of books? What kind of books are we studying or reflecting on?
Now, the vampire text started with The Vampire by John Polidori, looked at Bram Stoker's Dracula, looked at Carmilla by Le Fanu, and then went all the way up to more modern texts like Anne Rice, Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah.
Let the Right One In, I think that's by Lindquist.
I don't remember. I remember the movie.
So it went all the way from some of those classic texts to very modern texts.
And so we're looking at things like writing style, history of the characters, the periods. Like they behave this way because in this time frame we XYZ. That differs from like this writer who took this style and they at this time period XYZ, so on and so on.
Yes.
And I feel like that's such a beautiful way of. I feel like when you look at, as someone who loves horror in particular, I don't think horror always gets that same kind of respect. You know, kind of like when you said the creative writing courses, they were like, no horror, no sci-fi, no fantasy. I'm like, and then you shift to like, haha, we can do it. Joke's on you. And I think it's just to give it the respect I think it deserves, because there's a lot of good horror.
Yes, absolutely.
Out there. I read horror and I watch horror, so that's where I'm kind of leaning in that direction. But also, great sci-fi. Project Hail Mary is a great movie, and I think if it's anywhere near as good of a book as I've been told it is, then it's a really good exploration of human motivations and how people can communicate when they have next to nothing in common. I love that. And so those are the kind of things that are being explored in these Gothic studies.
Yes. And I loved Hail Mary as well. My husband read the book thoroughly, and he was so excited when the movie was coming out. He's like, you have to go see this.
Yeah, I remember seeing the movie. The movie was fantastic. I do need to read the book. I hate reading the book after I've seen the movie because I just feel like that wasn't in there.
Yeah.
I'm that guy. That's me. I'm so sorry. So what are other people doing with this degree? Like, you've obviously had an incredible successful writing career. What are other people doing with these with this degree?
Oh, we've had quite a few come out of the program who have gone on to teach, gone on to get their own doctorates and teach and continue pushing the education forward. One of my ultimate goals is to teach one day.
I see that coming very soon.
I'd really love to teach, and we've had a couple writers come out of the program. So a lot of there's been a big push in Europe and primarily in England, Scotland, Ireland with these kinds of programs. Bathspa has a Gothic program. Hertfordshire is where I went, Gothic program. The University of Edinburgh has a Gothic program. Glasgow has a fantasy master's you can get.
And that's basically doing the same thing, but it's focusing specifically on the fantasy genre.
Yes.
I feel like that would be interesting because with fantasy, it's like picture the real world. Now throw all that away and build something very similar, but not that. That's how I envision fantasy as someone who doesn't read fantasy. But I feel like that's a very interesting way to explore that. And I think there's a lot of, I think people can grow and be better people when we explore things that are more dark, because that's just reality for some people. And I think it creates some compassion. I think that creates some compassion. I want to get into this. This was the 80-page tome that you dropped on someone's desk. Tell us about this book.
Tales of the Black Rose is a dark fantasy with some dark romance elements as well. It's essentially about a young woman who's a fae princess, but she gives up her title to become a knight.
Okay.
And she becomes captain of the guard to her cousin, who's the heir to the throne. And her cousin is murdered on her watch.
Oh, no.
So she takes an ancient oath called the Oath of the Black Rose Guard in order to find out who murdered her cousin, track them down, and take vengeance.
So you gotta have that vengeance in there.
Yes.
Can't just find out who, but it was him. It's like, all right, now what? Now we take him out. What you mean? So there's a fantasy element and a mystery element in there. So I guess so people can understand when you buy this book, how dark is dark.
It's pretty. Black Rose is the darkest of what I write. It's pretty dark. It's got some torture elements in it. One of the main characters, they're immortal. So one of the main characters is imprisoned for about 25 years and tortured off and on through that imprisonment. He comes out not obviously dealing with all sorts of mental and trauma issues.
I can only imagine.
Dealing with that coming out. And I have a very, very wicked villain in the form of a fake queen who the sky's the limit on what she'll do.
Okay, so there's just no bars. There's just no limits.
Not with this villain. A lot of my other work is not as dark as Black Rose, but Black Rose is the darkest of my work.
So is that where you just kind of like hold on to the dark tendencies, like creative tendencies, and like just save it for Black Rose?
I mean, I scatter some darkness through most of my books, but Black Rose is kind of my outlet for that in a way. It's also my biggest series. The final two books will be book 8 and 9 that are about to come out, and 9 will close out the series.
And there's going to be a definitive, we'll just say a definitive end.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It also has a very dark love story in it, forbidden love, between Mara and the captain of the guard. They're not supposed to be together. They can't help but be together. The queen doesn't like them being together, so she does things to try and stop their love, but they always end up coming back to each other.
So this is where we tie into that story you were telling earlier.
Yeah, yes, the Tristan and Isolde, the forbidden romance.
Totally leaving that in because I've been sick recently and I had a cough. See, that's how you incorporate it. See, I recognized it right off the bat. See, I'm learning. Now, see, for me, for you guys, it's going to be like an instant cut and it's going to make no sense whatsoever, but I had to pause because I was coughing and slowly dying. But I guess it just means like everything inside me was just reaching out to get this book because the story sounds fantastic. It truly, truly does. Because again, I'm not a fantasy person, but I'm not going to lie. You have really intrigued me and you've about sold me on, I bought it for my wife so she could read it, but she may have to wait till I'm done with it before she gets her hands on it. And this is book 1 of a series that has 7 books available now. And then you said books 8 and 9 are going to come out soon. When does book 8 come out?
8 and 9, the hope is to get them both out by the end of the year. 9 might get pushed into early 2027, but we're trying to get them both out by the end of the year.
Gotcha. Well, it's almost September, so we'll have a whole lot of year left.
It's currently with editors, so.
Oh, so yeah, we'll be fine. I'm not putting anything out. So how do you, when you reflect on the dark elements that you put into your writing, is there any self-reflection that goes on in that process?
I mean, maybe a little, because you know, as an author, I put myself into the mind of the characters while it's happening.
Yeah.
I'm very connected to my world. I'm very connected to my characters. I do cry when I torture them sometimes.
Oh, can you feel that? You feel their pain in that process?
Yeah, sometimes I do. Especially with Mara and Edward, the two main from Rose, because I've been writing these. They've been with me since college, in different iterations, and as the story has evolved to finally become what's been published. But they've gone through many, many drafts and many versions of themselves before I found the one that I felt like I could publish.
I feel like this is the kind of question that all writers will understand more than anybody else. How have those characters helped you through the years?
I guess they were a way to channel anything I was going through, to kind of put, if I'm sad, a scene might have ended up a little sadder, or if I was excited, you find a more exciting scene to write. It's kind of cathartic for me to work through emotions by working with my characters in specific types of scenes, and these books have kind of taken me on a grand journey, because when I was getting ready to publish my first book, I hadn't put it out yet, but my master's dissertation was on Anne Rice.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never met her before. And when I started my doctorate, I found out that Anne Rice was coming to New Orleans, for the first time in about a decade, for the Vampire Lestat Ball.
Right.
And I decided to fly from Dublin to New Orleans to go to the ball.
That's a flight.
Yes, it was a bit of a flight. It was crazy. But I just had to meet Anne Rice. It was my dream, and she was going to be there, and the ball had been a dream of mine. So I got on a plane. I flew to New Orleans. I got to meet Anne Rice. And of course, we were talking a little bit, and she asked me if I do any writing, since I'm majoring in literature and such. And I said, well, I have this book, and I've kind of been thinking about trying to get it published, but, nervous, young, never published author that I was.
Yeah.
And she said, if you ever publish that, let me know, and you can come back to this ball as my guest. And when I did put out the book, that's exactly what happened. Anne Rice invited me back to the ball to be a speaker at the Undead Con, which used to be associated with the Vampire Lestat Ball.
Mm-hmm.
They don't run it anymore, unfortunately, but I was invited out. I got to spend time with Anne Rice. I got my very first panel as an author was in New Orleans at the Anne Rice Vampire Lestat Ball.
That's how do you top that?
I don't know. It was absolutely incredible and so kind of her, and she was so kind to fans, to other authors, to dreamers like me who dreamt of being an author. She was just so kind, and it was an amazing experience. I ended up going 3 years as her guest for the ball. I met some of the most amazing friends that I have while I was at the ball. I actually help run the Dark Gift Alliance Ball in New Orleans now.
Sweet.
I help run that every year on Halloween. And
my birthday's in October, so I might have to figure something out next couple of years.
I would love to have you. But yeah, it changed my life in the writing, because of Anne Rice, because of New Orleans, because of the invitation. And I've had amazing invitations. Last year I went to Australia twice for book signings, and Australia, that was a dream to go over, and we made a whole trip out of it.
Yeah.
We did New Zealand. Yeah, we
to
did
fly that far
as well. So Australia, we did Melbourne, Sydney, and everywhere in New Zealand we could possibly get. So my writing has taken me to like amazing locations. My studies have taken me to amazing locations. My Gothic Studies have taken me to Romania twice. Once as just a trip that my dad and I kind of took to see the castle, Bran Castle.
Mm-hmm.
And then again as a speaker at the University of Timisoara, where I was giving a presentation. It's taken, I've given conference papers in Lisbon, in San Diego, in Chicago, in Austria, in Spain. It's taken me everywhere.
See what I said earlier about like a little travel? No, just
one or two countries.
One or two this year. Like, how many different countries have you been at this year? A wild question.
Just Australia last year. So
see, but before that, see what I'm saying? Like I told you, travel. See, I told you earlier at the beginning of the interview. Little travel? No, she's been everywhere. Just circumnavigated the globe like a million times. But how, as we mentioned, kind of like mentors earlier, how crucial was that meeting with Anne Rice?
For me, it was kind of everything. It gave me the courage to finally put that book out there for the first time, because I just had this goal. If I find the courage, Anne's gonna invite me back to her ball, and that kind of really helped me. And then Anne gave me some advice over the years about writing, which really helps with my confidence and with my ability to put the book out there. And I was very, very fortunate with what I got to talk to her about. And then on my own thesis, of course, I got to ask her. One of the big questions of my paper was this analysis of if the vampire Lestat is a hero or a villain. Mm-hmm. And I actually got to sit down with Anne and ask her that question directly. Like, in your opinion, did you intend for him to be a villain or a hero?
What did she say?
She said, that's the easiest question I've had all night. He's absolutely a hero.
Really?
That's what Anne Rice said.
Yes. I mean, if Anne Rice said it, who am I to argue? You're familiar with Dan and Eva from VamChat, right?
Yes.
So they have their vampy questions, and I have this battle with Eva. Shout out to Eva Vertrice. Do you agree or disagree with the opinion that Louis is a whiny bitch? You have to watch you have to listen to Dan and Eva, VamChat with Dan and Eva, to understand that every time they always ask the question, and if anyone picks Louis, who's better, Lestat or Louis, Eva always says that Louis is a whiny bitch. So, as someone who has said and had these kind of conversations with the Anne Rice, your opinion?
I think that's a little harsh.
I think it's completely unfair, but
yeah,
I think Louis is just trying to hold on to his humanity, and I think that's why I choose Louis. I'm not going to steal their vampy questions. You guys can either find the episode where she's been on Vamp Chat or wait till she is on Vamp Chat and you can hear her official answers then. I'm not going to steal their thunder. Have you done their show?
No, but I was on a panel with them at Imaginarium.
You should totally do their show. They're great. But I want to touch on the travel for just a bit, because what has, when you go to different countries, you go to these different events, you do these different things, you see the world, it puts things in a whole different perspective. What has that meant for you personally, and what has that meant for your characters and your writing as a whole?
It's had a huge impact on my characters, for starts, because I do research when I travel. I do research on places for potential books. A trip through Scotland, my husband and I was living in Ireland. My husband came to visit me while I was doing my studies, and it was New Year's Eve. And I said, hey, want to hop a plane to Scotland and go watch castles or go watch fireworks over the castle? And he's like, sure, why not?
Why not? So we do on a Tuesday.
We basically did. We hopped a plane, went to Scotland, drove around for a couple days, visited castles and different locations, and ended up in Edinburgh at the end to watch fireworks on New Year's Eve. But one of the places we went to was the Isle of Skye. Mm-hmm. And there's an island on the Isle that the tour guide talked about, and apparently it's only lived on for about 2 weeks out of the year. Like, someone very wealthy owns the house on the island. And I started thinking, I wonder what happens at this house on the island when no one else is there.
See, that's the best part of writing. That is my favorite part of writing right there. It's like that part just warms me, like asking those what if questions. I wonder what happens here. Sorry. It's one of those things that just
totally. Absolutely. I agree with you. That's one of the coolest parts, because a story idea can come from anywhere, right?
Literally everywhere. Anything can be a story. You can turn left at an intersection and be like, I wonder what's back that way. I said there's like a whole Doctor Who episode. For those who don't know, I watched Doctor Who with some friends. There's a whole episode on how this one character's life completely changed because at an intersection, she went left instead of right. So there was a whole episode of what would her life be if she went right, and how the whole universe was different because of that. So they had to go back in time and make sure she went left instead. It was a crazy thing. Hashtag Donna.
Well, when I was on the Isle of Skye and I had the question occur, it gave birth to one of my vampire novels where a vampire falls in love with a selkie.
What's that?
A person who can become a seal.
Like a seal?
A seal. It's called a selkie. I
didn't know there was a word for that.
Oh, it's a Scottish myth about people who could turn into seals.
That should be a whole episode by itself. We should have started there. Apparently I need to buy more books on Scottish mythology. So if you got some suggestions, you can get those. You can email those to me a little bit later.
Okay.
Because that is fascinating. It makes me review the movie Tusk in a whole different line. That was a walrus, but same but not same at all. So I want to take a moment, and we've talked so much about the influences of Black Rose. You have other series. Series.
Yes, I do.
So tell us about the other series.
Embracing the Dragon is the Flames of Kalleen series. And it's epic fantasy with some romance. And it's about a dragon shifter princess, so a woman who can turn into a dragon. And she's basically fighting to defend her kingdom from ancient threats.
Okay.
And it includes a very evil sister who wants to control the whole kingdom and plague them into ruin.
Naturally.
It has a a myth to the story that there used to be two kinds of dragons, Kalleen dragons and amethystine dragons.
Okay.
Amethystine dragons are kind of my own creation. They have six feathered wings on these dragons.
Okay.
And these dragons, they're a myth that they used to exist and they got banished from the kingdom long ago, and then they disappeared after they were banished.
So most dragons with wings don't have feathers. So this is a very special type of dragon.
Yes, so I kind of created the dragon, so I had a lot of fun. I worked with an artist named Raven Quinn, who helped me kind of design and come up with this idea for the dragons.
That's so dope.
So the story is that these dragons were banished, but some people say they still exist and they're waiting for vengeance.
Now, are they? We don't know. But you can know when you buy the series. We have Embracing the Dragon, Releasing the Dragon, Forsaking the Dragon, and then Reclaiming the Dragon. Is that correct?
And I have, yes, that's correct. I have this is the special edition of it, but
gorgeous.
This is the sprayed edge colored map edition. So.
And that's available where?
The special editions are signing exclusives.
Ooh. So you got to figure out where she is so you can get this book. Because that's just a gorgeous book. Your bookshelf needs it. Aesthetically, your bookshelf needs it.
But this is the paperback of the most recent release. So this is Reclaiming the Dragon.
Gotcha. And should I ask who that is, or will we find out more? So I'd hate for saying something about book 4 or spoil something.
Oh no, she's on the cover of all the books. This is
okay.
Princess Amelia. She's our main character.
Gotcha. Thought about that as I was asking. Like, wait, I don't want to spoil book 1 by talking about book 4 too much. And you mentioned the 3rd series, is that right?
Yes.
We're getting to 30.
I have quite a few, but I have quite a few series. But my other 2 big ones are Fairy Tales by Moonlight, which is a combination of a Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel, and a Red Riding Hood Rapunzel retelling.
Gotcha.
But it's where the main character, Celine, has to save the wolf from the big bad huntsman.
Naturally. Good name choices, by the way.
So it's kind of a twist on those fairy tales. It's romance. Good-looking huntsman. So we kind of took it as like, and he's a monster hunter. He goes around killing these monsters in a cursed wood, and then he runs into the heroine, and he's after the wolf, and the wolf is she's in love with the wolf. So.
Well, she has to protect it. I'll see. Now there's the conflict. Always got to be a good conflict.
Yeah.
So is it like a standalone or like a series or?
It's a 3-book series. It's my USA Today best-selling series.
So that's what made you a USA Today best-selling author.
Yes.
How did that feel?
Amazing. We worked really, really hard. It's a co-written series with Aaron McFadden, who's my brilliant co-author. And we worked on that one together, and we spent over a year planning, plotting, putting up the pre-orders, pushing the books and advertising, and just finally making that list, because you never know until a week after the book's out when the list comes out if you made it or not. So we were thrilled and excited, and it felt incredible.
So I want to get back to your series here and your other books in a second, but like that amazing feeling, like to know that when you're introduced to someone, you are introduced as a USA Today best-selling author. Like does it get old? Does it get weird?
Not really. Am I allowed to say not really?
You're allowed to say yeah.
Yeah, no, it's we worked really, really hard for that, and we're very proud of the books that we put out. And Aaron and I worked really well together. It was a fun co-write. we have different strengths. She's a lot of humor.
Mm-hmm.
So she brings the humor into the text that I tend to struggle with. I tend to bring the romance that she tends to struggle with. So we really complemented each other well on our strengths and weaknesses when writing the novel. And we've been friends forever, and we get along really well. And it was a great experience writing with her.
So instead of like that awkward thing people have to throw before your name, is more like a validation of all the work and effort that you guys put into it. And so you're like, damn right, I'm a USA Today best-selling author.
Yeah,
damn right I am.
It was my 20th book that I released that made the list. So it was also a long time coming to finally make it.
So there really was a lot of validation in that.
Yeah, it felt validating. It felt, I don't know, like our hard work paid off. But we were excited, and we're really, really grateful to the fans that bought the book and took the time to read it and review it. And we're so grateful to our fan base for helping us get there.
That reminds me of a situation that happened with a friend of mine. And the short version of that, because there's a question to the end, they wrote something. It was their first release. They put it into a competition and they didn't make it. And they felt super discouraged not being a finalist in that competition. Given that it was like your 20th release before you had that accolade, what do you say to the budding artist, writer, filmmaker, creative person in their industry who doesn't seem to get the reward right away? What do you say to them?
I would say the same thing I was told. When I was 17 or 18, I met Laurel Takei Hamilton. She's a New York Times bestselling author. She was the first big author I'd ever met. And right. I asked her about, I want to be a writer. Can you share something with me? And what she said was, if you're serious, if you really want to do this, pick a wall in your house, cover it with rejection. Only when it's completely full can you begin thinking about success.
That's deep.
It was deep, but for me, it got me through the hard days, the days where I put out a book and you sell a copy or two, the days where you're struggling to write, the days where an agent says no. It's always stuck with me ever since I was young because, writing, creative pursuits in general, you're going to be told no sometimes. You're going to be told this isn't what I'm looking for, this isn't good enough, or it could be a great, strong story, but just not suited to the person reading it.
Right.
And rejection, it's just part of the process. And it can be hard and it can suck sometimes. But it's also how we learn, how we grow, how we get better, how we improve. And you have to also remember that no single movie, no single book, no single entity is going to be the perfect fit for everyone. What one person loves, another person might hate, and that's part of the process too.
That's so true, so powerful. Thank you for that. So I don't think we've gotten to 30 books yet because you threw that number out. I'm just like 30. Wow. So what else is there?
I have the Midnight Coven series, which is a vampire series. Okay. There's currently 5 books out in that. And it can be read together or as standalones. Each book follows a different protagonist, but there are crossover characters. So if you read them together, you will see a character from book 2 will show up in book 5 and vice versa. And it's all about vampires looking for their true love.
With all the books, all the travel, all the speaking arrangements, this, that, here, there, balancing your marriage. How do you do it? How do you do it? How do you find the time? Because my clock only has 24 hours on it.
I don't sleep. I try to be as structured as I can. I'm a plotter for my work, so I'm always, have the next book outlined and plotted, and I know where the scenes are going. Especially when I start a new series, I'll kind of try my best to plot out. Okay, is this going to be one and done? Is this going to be 5 books? Is it going to be? I wasn't counting on the 9 books of Black Rose. That was a surprise.
Did the characters tell you otherwise?
Yes, absolutely.
That is one of the things that I think non-writers, non-creatives never understand writers saying. It's like, do you know what's happening in the next book? Not a clue. Well, why not? Like, the characters haven't told me yet. Don't you control the characters?
No.
That's cute. That's so cute. You think that's how that works? For the record, ladies and gentlemen, if you aren't a creative, that may not make any sense to you. But 9 times out of 10, I'd say 9 times out of 10, it's not us writing it. The characters are telling us what they're going to do, and we just write it down for them.
Yep, exactly.
I know it doesn't make sense. I don't know how to explain it to you any better. Kristen might be able to explain a little better. None of us can explain it, though. We don't know how it works.
No, the characters definitely will grab a story and run off with it sometimes. The second book in my Dragon series, I had an outline for the backstory. 5 different characters were supposed to tell 5 different versions of what happened. Mm-hmm. Instead, the first character who started talking never gave the book back. He just, no, I'm the only one who's going to tell the story. There's only one way it happened. This is what happened. And all these other characters don't exist anymore.
Oh, so they got written out altogether.
They got written out altogether, yes.
That makes perfect sense to me. Like, I'm trying to tell you, like, writers get it. Writers know. I had a short story series, and I'm like, all right, part 1's going to do this, and part 2's going to do this. 3's going to get here. I don't know how I'm going to write that kind of scene. But then part 4 will go here. None of that stuff happened. The characters were like, we're not doing any of this. We're going to go this route. And now we went into new characters were created. We met new people in the town. I have to now write their story. They get introduced here. I'm like, all right. I guess this isn't my story anymore. I'll just write down what y'all tell me. It's cool. I think every writer understands that.
I think the other part about how I do it is time management. You have to be protective of your writing time. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you have to sit down 8 hours every single day. Sometimes it means being protective of the 30 minutes that you have that day.
Right.
But when you decide to write, I've found anyway that I have to be very protective of that writing time, even if it's just a couple minutes, where you kind of get to shut the world down and say, no one bother me for the next 10 minutes because I've got to finish this scene.
Yeah.
Because, general interruptions will come. Life happens. It'll happen no matter what. But if you can try to protect your writing time, even if it's just a couple minutes a day, I've found that helps get that word count pushed forward.
And so are you just sitting here with all these different ideas just swimming in your head all the time? Do you have like the Kalleen's update, the next part mixing in there, like waiting for the light to hang out with the next Black Rose story? It's like, hey, I want to be written first. Is that the chaos that you're fighting?
Sometimes, yes. I try to schedule which book comes next. Most of the time, I'm pretty good about making sure it's the correct one. Right now is an exception. I'm currently working on a book that I'm not supposed to be working on. But the characters are talking, the other ones are not. So
it's like that happened. That is it right there. Sometimes you're like, I'm supposed to be working on this one, but they ain't said nothing. So you guys are up.
Yeah. And I like working on multiple projects at once because of that. When I get stuck on one, I can usually jump to a different one and kind of, get some words written on the other story if one is not talking.
Yeah. I always feel like we sound so crazy when we say stuff like this. It's like, yeah, when the voices are in there and they're talking to us, it makes perfect. But no, like, I can't emphasize this enough because this is such anyone out there who thinks this sounds nuts, find an author and just ask them who writes the story, you or the characters. Most of them, if they're honest, will tell you the characters are writing the story. We just kind of hang out in the space. It just makes sense. It's kind of like the artwork is speaking to me, so I painted blue over here. It's the same kind of thing. You had to go out and buy blue paint for it. You weren't planning on using blue paint. It's the same thing. It's a creative thing. I can't explain it. I don't know how to explain it. All of that's so great. So this past Friday from when we're recording this, one of my other shows, we just interviewed Dacre Stoker, mutual friend of ours, and you've apparently known him for a long, long time. This is
about 15 years, give or take.
So this is Dacre Stoker of the Bram Stoker legacy. So I was going to ask, how long have you known Dacre? When did you meet him, and what is that friendship? What does that friendship mean to
you? My friendship with Dacre means a lot to me. He's an amazing, amazing person. I love him. I met him about 15 years ago. I was in London when I met him. We were at my school. My professor hosts a conference every few years, and it's called the Open Graves, Open Minds Conference.
Mm-hmm.
That it shifts topics. It's started with vampires. It's done werewolves. I think currently it's doing fairies and Irish fae myth currently. But back then it was a vampire centered conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I was helping out with the conference. I had this exceptionally important job, handing out name tags.
That is a pretty important job, actually.
Oh, yes. Handing the registration packet and handing out name tags. So I was working the registration table for my professor, and this gentleman comes up and he starts talking to me. And the next thing I know, we've been talking for probably 15 minutes. And my professor finally wanders over and she says, "Are you ever going to give the guest of honor his name tag?" And I'm like, oh, you're Dacre Stoker. I had no idea who I'd been talking to
Right.
for the last little while. But we had a fun conversation that day. And our conference actually had a really incredible opportunity, really humbling experience. We actually got to go to Golders Green Crematorium, where Bram Stoker's ashes are held. And we got to go inside and we got to see the urn where Bram Stoker's ashes are held.
That's wild.
So we got to do that. And then a couple months later, I went to Dublin, which was Trinity College, Dublin, is where we were, for another Bram Stoker conference. And I ended up at a wine reception, and Dacre Stoker was there.
There he was.
So we picked up our conversation kind of right where we left off. And we just chatted for a while, and then Dacre takes a lot of trips to Romania. I'd never been at the time. I was planning a trip and I asked him for some pointers, and he said, actually, I'm going to be in Dublin. Why don't you join our group for dinner and I'll help you plan your trip? And so I met up with him for dinner, and he helped me plan this whole trip that my dad and I ended up taking to go see Bran Castle and Princely Court. And we've been good friends ever since. And he came to Ireland several times while I was studying over there, and we've met a couple times in Kentucky at the Imaginarium conference. And I had a virtual panel I was running for the PCA conference, and he graciously stepped in and became a panelist for me on one of the panels I was running. And that was a really good time. I had him and a couple of other vampire authors who were all talking about vamps and their writing and what it means to them. And but yeah, his friendship with him means a lot. He's just the most amazing person, and I'm very, very grateful to be friends with him.
Were you also doing lectures and talks prior to that, or was he like watching him do those speeches, or any of the other many speakers you've had at your various conferences that you've helped with? Did any of that help influence your decision to do lectures and do conferences and be a speaker?
I started doing the kind of like conferences as part of my master's program, because at the doctorate level, you're expected to kind of, at my program at least, expected you to give some conference presentations and papers and try and get a conference paper published. But yeah, watching him, give speeches, I still feel like I'm watching a master sometimes.
It is kind of magical, not gonna lie.
Yeah. So, but it was really cool because he's watched some of my speeches. I've watched a ton of his speeches over the years, but we had never been in person on a panel together until the Imaginarium this year.
And that was what you said, like 15 years essentially in the making.
Yes.
I should remember which panel was that. Which panel was that?
It was the one on Ireland vampires.
Is Ireland the New Transylvania?
Yeah, that's the
one. That's fair question. So simple yes or no question: is Ireland the New Transylvania? In your opinion?
I think I don't know if it's a yes or no question.
Fair, whatever answer you got.
I think the myths that are coming out of Ireland are incredible. The stories that have been unearthed are Gothic in origin. They're spooky stories. They're scary stories. Some have eerie similarities to some of the stories out of Transylvania.
Gotcha.
And I think we're in a place where we're exploring some myths that maybe didn't get as much attention in the past. We're seeing movies like K-pop Demon Hunters, for example. I've seen some great ones coming out of India. I think you're getting this kind of world myth, and that isn't necessarily in placement of Transylvania or Greek or some of the more classic mythologies. It's in addition to, and right. I think that is so cool because we've got we had K-pop Demon Hunters, but we also had the Odyssey just come out.
Yes.
So maybe we're getting a new interest in mythology, maybe in general, and
well, I feel like you already tonight have shared so much about your writing and the way that myth and stories of old have influenced your writing into modern day stories. So I think you are a prime example of what that increase of attention on mythology from other places outside of just Greek, Rome, and wherever else. I think you're a prime example of that, and that should be one of the reasons why people pick up this book. I got my copy off of Amazon. Is there a better place to pick this up?
I mean, not necessarily. I'm on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kobo Plus. Audible.
Go to your local, if you don't want to buy it off of Amazon, because some of you all don't want to, that's the thing. It's cool. Go to your local bookstore. There's the title and the author. Have your local bookstore order a copy, or like 20, and then so that like other people can get this. So yeah, go to your local bookstore, or I think there's like a website like bookstore.org or something like that where you can buy books online and it gets credit to like a local bookstore.
I'm not sure.
I think that's the case. If I'm wrong, I'll put the correction in the caption when this thing goes live. So I don't know, but I'm gonna look it up. So by the time you're hearing me say this, just look down. It's there already. Either way. Also, the link to her books will probably be there. Maybe it'll be easier for me to just put a link to your author page on Amazon so they can find all the books at once. Because I feel like
I do have a website that has all the books on it. So
you can just go there. Yeah. That's klbone.com.
Yep.
And after all this, the millions of books and thousands of millions of billions of miles traveled, what could possibly be next?
Well, I have a couple of things coming up. I'm finishing off my Black Rose series at the end of the year, hopefully, with books 8 and 9. And then I have a book signing called Rare. It'll be a bunch of authors will be at Rare in London, July 17th of next year. It's a massive signing. I'm so excited to be signing in London. I've never officially, I lived there for a while, but I've never had a book signing there. So I'm really, really excited to do that. And I have a couple of new projects coming down the line. I have a sci-fi piece that I'm working on currently. I only have one sci-fi novel out. It's not my normal genre, but it is something I'm excited to jump into. So it's kind of a sci-fi romance meets Silence of the Lambs. It's the best way I can describe it.
Okay, like I heard several clicks in my brain while I was trying to process. So is that the one you're working on or the one you already have out?
I'm currently working on it.
All right. So I don't want any more about the one that you're working on. One, because I know how that can change easily. But two, we gotta wait till that's solid before we tell people about that. But what's the? I didn't know there was a sci-fi book. What sci-fi book do you have out?
It's called The Indoctrination.
Okay.
And it is a story about a woman who is abducted by aliens as a child. They're a parasitic race that infests other hosts. And she is raised by one of the leaders of this empire and basically trained in their ways to become a leader herself.
Gotcha.
And the story is set with her on trial on the opening page. Ooh. And she's accused of betraying humanity, basically, in a bunch of bad crimes that she's committed. And she says, I've hurt a lot of people. I've killed a lot of people. But you can't say that I've ever betrayed humanity because I'm not human. And then she starts her story about how she was abducted, how she was trained in alien ways from a young age, and how she doesn't consider herself to be human.
That's perfectly fair. That's a great way to start a story. See? Sold already. And what was that called again?
The Indoctrination.
See, there's so many books. You're just going to have to go to klbone.com and just look through all of it. Because I haven't heard a story that you talked about from you that I didn't already find some kind of interest in. And this is someone who doesn't do romance, doesn't do fantasy. And it's one of the reasons why I had to have you on this show. Because talking to you is just so interesting and it's just so fascinating. You have such great stories to tell that other people, like this story has to be out. You had to be talked to. And I personally, I just wanted to talk to you about it. I wanted to learn more. So What easier and better way than to have you on the show? So
the trick of indoctrination is what makes it so different from anything else I've written. In addition to sci-fi, it's told from the villain's point of view.
How did you feel about that perspective? Did you find that difficult to write?
I found it challenging, but very interesting to actually write from the perspective of the villainess, completely through and through. Now, she doesn't necessarily see herself that way.
Of course.
But, she does. She is the villain, and it kind of makes you hopefully question what is a villain, what is a hero, where's the line between them.
It's razor thin. Typically it's razor thin.
Typically.
Did you find that stylistically different? Like, did you feel like you had to like kind of tap into different skill sets or maybe different reference points in order to kind of write from that perspective?
Yes, I think it took different, it was a very different approach, because I had to continually remind myself, this is the villainess, this is the bad guy. You can't really redeem her completely. You have to. It was kind of constantly reminding myself, okay, what perspective are you writing from here? And then you have the extra challenge of, the readers need to root for this woman, even though she's doing terrible things sometimes.
And that's so hard.
Yes.
That's so hard.
Yes.
That just kind of goes to the clear mastery that you have with the pen and in all of your works. And I don't even know what else to say at this point. Like, I'm just so floored. Because again, that story sounds so interesting. And of course, from a writing perspective, I can see where that would be difficult, and not so much difficult, but they're very different angle to write from, especially in the genre that you don't typically write in. So you just went balls to the wall. You just went all the way like, you know what? If I'm going to write in a space I'm not used to writing, let me just do something else really hard at the same time, and then just like make it work. And you're going into sci-fi again with new works that are coming out soon, right?
Yes. Working on the sci-fi. That'll be kind of a brand new, probably trilogy is what we have it down to now.
Gotcha.
It'll come out, and I've got another book in my vampire series, so it'll be another vampire romance book that I'm also working on, and then a co-write with Raven Quinn that will be a fairy tale retelling of Red Riding Hood.
So do you have like a newsletter? Because there's no way that anybody could be able to keep up with this on their own.
Yes, I do send out a newsletter.
And so they can sign up for that and subscribe to that newsletter at klbone.com?
Yes.
Excellent. Audiobooks. You have audiobooks coming out, right?
Yes, I do. Almost all of my books are on audio. I have 2 new ones coming out. They're for book 7 in the Black Rose series, and book 4, which is the final book in my Flames of Kalleen series. The audio files for book 7 of Rose got approved 3 days ago. I'm just waiting for Amazon to officially approve them.
Of course.
And then the Dragons should come out in the next month and a half. My narrator just started working on it.
So yeah, there's a lot. So you can either rewatch this video as many times as you want, or you can just go ahead and make it real easy and go to klbone.com and you can sign up for her newsletter. She's going to be telling you all of these updates when the audiobook for 7 comes out, when the audiobook for book 4, the Kalleen series comes out, when book 8 comes out, when book 9 comes out, when the sci-fi book comes out, when the signing in 2027 comes out. All of the things. See, just in that like little brief moment, what was that, like 5 releases? No, 6 releases, because there's the retelling of Red Riding Hood. I forgot already. So there's major signings next July. There's 6 releases of some sort coming out in like within the next 12 months, right?
Probably
Roughly?
next year and a half for all of them.
18 months. That's crazy. That's wild. Again, how do you manage all of this?
I think the other thing is I have a very incredible team. I have an amazing cover designer. I have an amazing audiobook narrator. I work Skylar on Cameron does all my cover work for the most part. Kylie Stewart does most of my audiobooks, and her voice is brilliant. She does really fun accents for my characters, which I love. A wide array from proper, fancy British accents to Irish to Scottish to French to Russian, and I think we just had a Ukrainian character done in one of the last books. So she does the accents, and she's just brilliant with it. And I have amazing editors and just a great team behind me that I couldn't do it without.
Well, shout out to that team. Do you give your narrator a lot of freedom when it comes to the voices, or do you kind of like, hey, I kind of want this character to sound like this?
Depends on the character. I have one or two I've been very specific about, but most of them she kind of gets to play a little bit. So
I think that's great. I think that's the kind of thing a narrator wants, is like, I got some freedom here. Great. Give me some bounds and I'll do everything else. I think that's fantastic. Is there anything else you want to share?
I don't know. I think we've covered a lot.
I think we have covered a lot. You have a lot going on. It's a lot to cover. Some stuff I didn't even have prepared for. Like, so much. It's just so much, and I'm so impressed. It doesn't even cover it. Like, I'm so like amazed, enamored by how much you're able to pull off and get done, and still have time to go gallivanting the universe. I can't believe that you're just staying on Earth at this point. I think that you've hopped a couple spaceships or something, and you've done like a signing on Mars.
I guess the other thing is I have a signing here in Chicago the weekend before Halloween, and it's called Romance in Chicago.
Okay. Do we have like a date on that? Date and time, location?
It's the Saturday before October 23rd through the 24th at the Congress Plaza Hotel in Chicago.
There you go. That's downtown, right?
Yes.
All right. I think I almost stayed there once. Almost stayed down there. Chicago's a beautiful place. One of my favorite cities.
But yeah, I've got a signing that day. And then, of course, I'll be at the Dark Gift Alliance Ball on the 29th of October in New Orleans, where I'm giving the opening speech for the ball.
Now, see, that's an important role right there. That first speaker, so you left all that out.
I'm very excited. This will be my second year giving the opening remarks, so I'm pretty excited about that. And I love New Orleans. Just a fun city for Halloween, of course. And
should definitely plan that one. I've been trying to plan a trip to New Orleans for a while, but I just haven't managed.
Well, we'd love to have you at the ball sometime.
I'll look into it. I'll definitely have to, get some information and some time frames. We'll figure it out. My birthday's in like late October, so I'm just like, hey, birthday present. I don't need much. Just gonna go here. Yeah, I'll definitely entertain that. Any excuse to go down.
There's about 4 balls that are hosted over Halloween weekend. Dark Gift Alliance is the one that I'm associated with. So
I have to write that one down. Someone's trying to get your attention.
Apologies.
Nah, don't worry about that. We only apologize when we've done something wrong. That's the rule around here. But that's about all I had. And if that's all you had. Just remind the people where they can go to find you and your info and the 80-page tome that must be the newsletter to keep up with everything that you're doing.
Just klbone.com is my website, and I have all my social links, all my books, all the links for the books, and I write blog posts about my travels as well on the website.
Because more writing has to be done. Yeah. I might probably check out those because I've seen some of the pictures of your trips and travels, and I'm like, where is she this week? Where is she this week?
Fall is definitely my busy season usually. So.
Oh, I can imagine. I'm usually home because that's when the kids start going to school.
But yeah, fall's usually my big one because of what kinds of books I write, and there's lots of signings and the events and the New Orleans ball that I host. So, and next year will be an exception because of London in the summer.
Right, but I mean, how can you pass up a chance to do that?
It's going to be amazing. My two closest friends are going to go with us, my husband and I, and they've never been to England, so we're going to take them to Scotland.
Oh, that sounds great.
And some of England as well.
Fantastic. Well, I'm certain I will talk to you before then, but that was going to be a fantastic trip. We'll have a great signing in October. And thank you so much for doing this show. It has absolutely been a pleasure and an honor for me to have such a prolific writer. Like literally, you write everything.
It's my honor as well. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you guys for spending the hour and a half watching us talk about all the incredible writings and studying and travel and learning and growing, all the experiences we've gotten from the wonderful USA Today bestselling author, K.L. Bone. So thank you guys for watching. This has been the Moon Unscathed. I'm the Moon. Watch more stuff because Jesus wept. I don't know. I had nothing else. I had no theme song or nothing. I just kind of closed things out. Have a great time, y'all. Thank you.